The Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, is currently briefing the media on material developments in her portfolio. Let's cross live there now.
Lockdown, in order to minimize the impact of the spread, the first thing was to make sure that as the department that's at the center of driving the uptake of digital technologies, we create an enabling environment for people to work. Because as much as we're on lockdown, we needed to make sure that we have not only a stable but a productive state that should be able to do work the way it's supposed to do. That's why we announced on the ministerial directives that we issued. And key to those was enabling remote working, which all of you have found expression on. That you are able to broadcast, you are able to report on the stories, and South Africans have been able to access services, including education, online. And that was the work that had to be championed by the department that is responsible for the regulation of the digital technologies that we're talking about, including ensuring that there will be access to connectivity, because we may be talking about all these platforms, but if the capacity of the mobile operators could not be able to carry out the traffic, we would have collapsed as the country. I want to upfront thank the industry for responding very positively when we made those announcements. We called upon themselves to avail free services as an intervention to COVID and South Africans. Indeed, as you know, we were able to get lots of the platforms zero-rated, but on top of that, we were able to get the industry being able to provide technical support to government, the Department of Science and Innovation, Department of Health, in terms of the work and the expertise that we have in the industry that we are responsible for. And that also spoke to the issues of the technologies that needed to be introduced. Hence, you listened to President Ramaphosa, who then announced to the country in terms of the COVID app that was there and developed. And it is because of the collaboration that we have with the industry. That did not say it is the government's responsibility. The industry that made it their responsibility in understanding that everything that has to happen around the department or the industry that we are responsible for. Again, in the announcements that we made last year, is that we were going to establish, actually we were saying we had established the Presidential Fourth Industrial Revolution Commission, which was appointed by President Ramaphosa. We reported to the country that they've started with their work, and indeed I'm proud to stand here and say the report has been gazetted. Cabinet has approved the report, and President, as the chairperson, has confirmed and signed off the document that is a blueprint of South Africa. And as I talk about that, the blueprint of South Africa, to say how do we then identify our own niche in this era that we are in. In most cases, colleagues that have been taking platform on, you will remember that I've been saying it is high time that South Africa becomes the inventor of technologies and not continue as the consumer of technologies. And the blueprint document that has been produced by the commissioners talk to those. It has identified, I'll just make mention of the key 8 priorities that they said it is important for the country to focus on, both government, private sector, and civil society. And amongst those is the investment in human capital. I did say that we had taken a conscious decision not only on COVID response, but also to say how do we then help South Africans leverage on the fourth industrial revolution. And we said ours is not about technology, but ours is about the people that must therefore utilize these technologies in order to change their social and economic status. So the need to invest in human capital was identified by the Commission. The second one is the establishment of an artificial intelligence institute. You may be asking, why did we choose to highlight artificial intelligence amongst other 4IR technologies that are there? But we have learned, and the Commission is convinced, that one of the key drivers of the fourth industrial revolution looking at the socio-economic intent that we want to achieve in South Africa, the challenges that we go through, that it would make sense for us to build capability around that artificial intelligence, and therefore to have an institute that we would know that not only South Africans have access to it, but also other African states can benefit, including the private sector that will be deploying these technologies. The other component is the establishment of a platform of advanced manufacturing. Amongst the things that we're talking about is the need to reindustrialize the electronics industry. We are talking of jobs that are being lost right now as we are faced with COVID, but we are saying, as much we are saying COVID has destabilized us, but as the people in the technology space, we are saying COVID has helped us to leapfrog directly to the digital society that we're talking about, which is the basis of the fourth industrial revolution. And when we say that, it says what opportunities, therefore, that we can navigate and invest on in order to change the economy of the country whilst leveraging on the 4R. And key to that is manufacturing of the technologies that must be produced in South Africa. So it's important that we establish this platform for advanced manufacturing. Most people have asked, does it mean that the department seeks to come up with new structures at all when we make these interventions? We have said because our responsibility is not only to lead, but also to coordinate the fourth industrial revolution. And that means we are not the ones that are doing all this work. Ours is to say, what does CSIR have? What does DTIC have and other components? What does the private sector have? And how to bring all of those together in order to make sure that we can have a coordinated approach so that we can execute effectively and be able to trace impact. And key to that, as we have had at some point about a 3D student that produced an ear of a person. Actually, if I were to talk about our own interventions, the students that we had trained at UJ on 3D printing, one of them came up with an artificial leg when a parent was hit by a car and they could not afford to buy that. And these are the interventions that we are saying, if we're able to provide these skills, because at the center of manufacturing, at the center of ensuring that South Africans can really uptake these technologies is making sure that they have the know-how on how to produce technologies. That is why we offer those training programs that I'll be talking about. So we really want to establish that and invest in that. And the other thing, as we're talking about this, we always say the new oil in this environment that we operate in is data. And people have had the excitement of being on all the platforms, just like you have seen myself being hacked on WhatsApp, because people understand the importance of having access to data that they can use against or for the betterment of the person's life. That also talks to the platforms that people operate in, the technologies that they use, that is important as government, that we create a secure environment for that data, but most importantly to make sure that this data can be used for commercial purposes, including innovation by small businesses, entrepreneurs. So we want to make sure that we create that platform to secure and avail data to enable innovation and help government improve on planning, because it is true that data that is mined and collected, that we're able to invite data analytics, as we have seen them now assisting on COVID. We invite data scientists to come and do what they're supposed to do and help government's response to be practical and responsive. The other one is to incentivize future industries, platforms and applications of 4IR technologies. I made reference to this earlier when I was talking about the 3D, but I spoke of the platform earlier on. But now we're also saying, in most cases in South Africa, as I said, we are the consumer of technologies. We do not have tablets that are produced in this country. We do not have TV sets that are produced in this country. We do not have camera phones, as you all have cameras that you have there that are produced in this. We don't have software that is produced in South Africa. Now I'm going to scare you a little bit. What would happen as we all see what's happening in the world, witnessing the trade wars between the East and the West, and with the stance and the usage of the Chinese technologies by our telcos in South Africa and all telcos, which provide the platform for us to be able to utilize the 4IR technologies. What would happen if then the West would wake up and say, because your telcos in South Africa, they continue to utilize the Chinese technologies, therefore we are calling upon all the American companies to back off from South Africa. That would mean that people will not get their salaries. That would mean all the systems that we are using will not be functional because the software that we use is not South African produced. So we are saying it's high time that we invest in those so that when that time comes, we're able to say, as South Africa, not only for economic benefit, but also we're able to add our own character and therefore can protect the space that we want to participate on. Key to that is building of the fourth industrial revolution infrastructure. You may have observed, again, colleagues and South Africans, when the Department of Education introduced virtual learning. You may have observed when we called for those virtual meetings, be it at organizational level or the parties that we wanted to host, the virtual parties that people were hosting, including access to entertainment. That people, everybody, there was content that was availed because platforms were availed, but people could not connect because of poor connectivity and poor network. And therefore, we are saying, in order for South Africa to have a clear path and see the economic spin-off in the fourth industrial revolution, South Africa has to invest in the infrastructure that we are talking about. One of the key things that many people hate me for when I make reference to it is that we need to do a complete overhaul of the legislations that we have. I'm speaking to you now. You know that you knew my department as the Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services then. And the regulator that we had then was focusing on a specific aspect. We had broadcasting on the other side. What we are seeing with the fourth industrial revolution technologies is the convergence of all these technologies to one platform. If I'm talking about a car now, a car is a data center. Because as you log into your car, in terms of the direction that you are going to, you're able to connect on your Wi-Fi, and therefore everything happens right in your own car. You're able to, at your own home, you're able, with security services in terms of the alarm systems, you're able to log and check in your Mtata house what is happening. And these are the things that are enabled by the fourth industrial revolution technologies, which require more infrastructure, and therefore the legislation to make those accessible, to make those available to people is very important, but also to make sure that they can protect the rights of the citizens as they utilize those technologies. So it's important that we're going to be focused on that. That's what the 4IR report at the center has. Key to this, because people have said, we've seen new government. You've came up with great strategies, great plans, but when it comes to implementation, you're so bad. We have said ours is to make sure that we establish a project management office which is manned with experts from the different fields of the fourth industrial revolution in order to make sure that they will be the ones that monitor and coordinate the implementation of the work that we are talking about, to make sure that we're not just coming with rhetoric that will not find expression in changing people's lives. And key to that, again, is the collaboration, not only between the PMO and the stakeholders, but the collaboration amongst all bodies in South Africa, be it the judiciary, be it the legislative arm and government, to work together in appreciating the environment that we are operating in. As I spoke about the infrastructure, most of you have been reporting and hammering on this minister. She's been there. We've been talking spectrum. There's delays. Even when the minister came to explain that I have issued the policy and the policy direction, and according to the law, my role ends there. But people have continued to say, Minister, your job is not done because the spectrum is not licensed yet. As you may know, we had appointed the ICASA councillors, and proud now to announce, as you already know, that they have issued the ITA. Indeed, they had followed what the policy and the policy direction was saying in terms of ensuring that when they introduce the ITA, they go together, that of one which seeks to deal with the challenges of the past or the imbalances to give an opportunity to new entrants and also those that would want to participate at service-based levels, as we're not only looking at infrastructure level only. So they've issued both ITAs, that of the high demand spectrum on international mobile technologies, and of course that of WAN. For the first time, fellow South Africans, in the history of the democratic government, I'm not going to talk about what happened prior, we are seeing the regulator in the ITA being clear in terms of empowerment of black people in our country, which is something most people have hammered us for, to say it's been 26 years, but in this sector we have not seen transformation. Even after we issued the policy direction, people still were not confident that the authority will be able to come up with interventions that seek to say, indeed, it is high time that we change the status quo. It is high time that we empower people that must be empowered. And we really welcome that bold move by the authority, as I said, for the first time. Now the onus is up to the BBBE ICT Sector Council, which I'm also pleased to announce that they will be publishing their 4-year strategic plan in order to align with the changes indicated in the ITA, which is the invitation to apply. And of course, key to the ITA, if you may have missed it, is the fact that the authority goes to an extent of saying those that will be applying, they must make sure that they meet their level 1 BE status, and not only to meet once, but they are saying meet that level BBBE 1 status for the duration of your license. That means if you have gotten spectrum and the license that you have is for 10 years for you to be operational, for 10 years we expect you to respect that the black people of this country need to be empowered, and you must remain on that level BE1 status. I won't be surprised if others would want to fight it, but I want to ascertain one thing, that will stand with the regulator on this one, because it is our responsibility to make sure that the policies and the regulations that we develop also serve the interest of the public. I made mention of the key 8 points that were identified, the recommendations from the Commission, which talk to human capacity development. I have said this, ladies and gentlemen, we announced the training of 50,000 young people on data science and related skills, on top of the 700 that will be training. And this we are doing simply because we want to showcase that although we are not a department responsible for training, we are a department that must make sure that people are digitally transformed, and therefore they're able to utilize their technologies, not only for consumption purposes, but also to generate an economic spin-off. That's why we showcased with that. That's the program that's driven by our training institute, NEMISA, and of course the MICT CETA came on board to partner with ourselves. As I unpack again, on us coming up with efforts and initiatives to make sure that we lead this 4th industrial revolution in South Africa, we, through Cabinet, passed the audio and audiovisual content services policy framework, which has been gazetted, and it really received lots of feedback and positive responses by our people in order to make sure that our industries remain relevant in the sector, and therefore we're able, including the broadcasters that are here, they're able to utilize their platform to be OTTs, and therefore a clear regulation on that should be established. We are, of course, again, and under this, we had made sure that there's a driving force in terms of a clear path in saying what kind of skills, as we talk about the human capital development and the future of work in South Africa in the 4th industrial revolution. And key to that is understanding the terrain that you operate in, and that means doing an analysis of the skills gap that you have in the country, and that we have done. The Cabinet has approved the National Digital Skills Strategy, which will be enforced and implemented by all that are responsible to do so. Again, I am proud to announce that as we reported that we seek to, or we intend to establish a digital infrastructure company, a state digital infrastructure company, through the merger of BBI and Centec, the business case has been finalized. Now we are awaiting the processes, because unfortunately they do not end with us only in the department. We are awaiting cabinet processes and parliament processes where we need to make certain amendments in the legislations in order for that to be realized. And Centec has committed even last week in their AGM that was held. The second one, of course, was that we spoke about of restructuring USASA and USAF to be a digital development challenge fund. And again, the business case is about to be concluded. Consultations with Treasury are ongoing. And these colleagues and fellow South Africans, if you recall, we had said there's lots of young people who are innovating in South Africa, but they do not have access to funding. Hence, we said it's important as the department that we create that platform, that they must therefore have access to this fund on the key things that we'll be talking about. We then came to the one that seems to be very sexy these days, that of unbundling the post bank and the post office, and to make sure that we corporatize the post bank. And again, I'm proud to stand here and report that the process of corporatizing the post bank is now at cabinet level. Following then, it will go to parliament, but already the amendments that needed to be made on the money bill were made through the Portfolio Committee of Finance, led from a departmental side, Treasury, and it's just now to make amendment in terms of who must be the bank controlling company. As when we unbundled Post Bank and Post Office, it was realized that we cannot have the Post Office being the bank controlling company of Post Bank because of its financial status. And therefore, we had to take a decision that the department must therefore be the bank controlling company, which is why it requires the amendment. Progress, as I said, is now at cabinet level, and we will be dealing with the rest of the stuff that's coming out as I proceed with my presentation. We also made reference to the fact that if we are to drive digital transformation in South Africa, we've got to make sure that we establish a digital services agency. And we said amongst our portfolio, when we looked in the portfolio organizations that we have SETA, the state IT agency, which has been acting as a procurement agency. And we said it's high time that we focus on SETA being the digital services agency, and the department is working with SETA on making sure that the legislation indeed is finding expression and amended. Colleagues, I'm talking about reconfigurations, measures of entities in order to respond to the new mandate that President gave us. Key to that is to ensure that the process becomes a smooth process, that we do not wait for the entities to come and give reports to us quarterly as is required by the law. We've got to make sure that on a day-to-day basis, we understand where we need to intervene. We have since established a joint oversight forum to commence the implementation of the measures, which will be chaired from my office in the ministry, and the Director General of the department will be the Secretariat of this PMO, and the joint operation, the joint oversight forum will be comprised of the chairpersons of the entities of the affected institutions, the CEOs, the CFOs, and a number of board members that the boards will agree on. And this is meant to make sure that as we work...
That's the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies on the latest from her portfolio. Chief among those, CASA has now issued invitations to apply for spectrum, also confirming the fact that the corporatization of Post Bank is making some progress, is now at cabinet level.